Among the president's first diplomatic efforts, if you will, when he took office back in 2021, was his decision to formally declassify Yemen's Houthi militant group. They had been referred to as a specially designated global terrorist group, and that was all declassified. Last night, the United States led a coalition of countries conducting airstrikes against these same militants in Yemen, following literally months-long campaign of them attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. Well, the Islamic Houthi militants receive support from Iran. So what can we expect from this military escalation in the Middle East? Is that now going to happen? Join me now to discuss this and more is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Robert Maginnis. He serves as Senior Fellow for National Defense here at the Family Research Council and is the author of the book, Divided We Stand, The Globalist Scheme for a One World Government. Lieutenant Colonel, great to welcome you back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jody.
Well, listen, I don't know very many people who know much more of what's going on with all of this than you. Give me your reactions when you first heard about the airstrikes in Yemen.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. They've been attacking us arguably since the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas. The Houthis have aligned themselves, of course, with sympathy for the Hamas effort, and of course they're supplied and a proxy of the Iranian mullahs in Tehran. There have been at least 27 drone, missile, boat attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea, which of course straddles the country of Yemen. And of course the Houthis have occupied the seat of power in that country for a number of years and have been fighting a civil war, which is now at a pause for the last year. So, this is indicative, I think, of an expansion of the current war. We've seen Hamas, of course, being defeated incrementally by the Israelis, but also Hezbollah has been very active, but not yet totally embracing a war against Israel in the north. We've seen at least 130 attacks against U.S. personnel in both Syria and Iraq. And of course, the other day we saw the Iranian Navy seize a Greek oil tanker moving oil from Iraq to Turkey. So there's an escalation in the mix. My concern, Jody, is that the Biden administration really doesn't appear to have a strategy that is going to bring stability to that region.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I think this is really what is creating so much concern for so many of us. I mean, the airstrikes last night, you have said, and I've heard others say, is long overdue, but will it or will it not deter the real villain, which is Iran at this point? I mean, how does this all tie in? And will the airstrikes from last night do anything to stop Iran, or will it cause Iran to escalate potential instability in the area?
Yeah, Iran is willing to sacrifice every one of the Houthi terrorists, much like they have the Hamas terrorists and any others that they have as proxies around the region and the world. Now, I know this will not deter them from moving forward. It will be a setback because we destroyed launch pads in Yemen, we destroyed supplies, but Iran will do its best to sustain the effort and to intimidate the shipping lanes. What you need to appreciate is it was back during the Trump administration when we put a missile in the back seat of a car that was occupied by Soleimani, the leader of the Quds Force, the IRGC, that is really the instrument that the Ayatollah in Tehran uses to manipulate the proxies and to go after Western interests in the region. Then we, subtly but very clearly said, what happened to Soleimani is going to happen to the Ayatollah if this nonsense doesn't stop. Well, it stopped. Reagan did much the same thing during his time in office, and the Iranians kind of back down. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has sent a very different signal. They've made it very clear they oppose the stop of the nuclear deal that Obama started and Trump stopped, and so they reignited that. They have obviously really benefited from the relief they got from sanctions and have just made them flush in money because they're now selling 3 to 4 million barrels of oil a day, mostly to the Chinese, which has enriched them enough to extend their adventures, not only with the Houthis and Hamas, but with Hezbollah, and arguably all over the rest of the world in various pockets. So this has been a failed strategy. You mentioned earlier that they removed the Houthis in 2021 from the terrorist list that the State Department maintains. The Biden administration hasn't got anything here right. And unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse.
Wow. Well, that's really frightening. You mentioned that there's been at least 27 attacks over the last few months since October 7th there in the Red Sea. This is an area where about 12% of the global trade passes through the Red Sea. And of course, this has been massively disrupted by these attacks. So do we gauge the success of the airstrikes last night by the amount of attacks that continue and stopping the commercial trade? How do we determine success or not?
Yeah, there has been a subsequent attack by the Houthis on commercial shipping. I would say success is measured economically. When the transshipment companies from all over the world start to use the Red Sea routinely and don't divert their oil tankers and their transportation around the Horn of Africa, then we know that things have returned to some sort of normality. Otherwise, they're not going to take the risk. And obviously, we, the coalition, have been in the Red Sea, have not provided sufficient deterrence. And so there's going to be a pause for a while, and we'll have to wait and see if the Houthis can continue to threaten that maritime area. And if they do, then we'll have to take more action. But I don't think the Houthis is the answer. We're going to have to take some sort of direct action against the Iranians, and arguably certainly putting sanctions back on their oil shipments, which of course will not please the Chinese, but that's something that's necessary, and we could become far more aggressive, as was President Trump.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think ultimately Iran gets majorly involved in all of this. And this brings me probably to my last question just because of time, but there are some out there who are saying that the airstrikes literally played into the hand of the Houthis because they want to escalate conflict in the area. Your thoughts on that? Would you say yay or nay?
Yeah, well, they've been involved in a civil war with the Saudis and other countries for the last 15 years. It's been somewhat, depressed here in the recent past. But I think if, the Iranians can figure out how to sustain the fight with the Houthis, they will do just that. But I do believe they'll become more directly involved. And then we'll have to make the decision whether or not we want to go actually fist to fist and head to head with the Iranians in the Persian Gulf and elsewhere.
So about 30 seconds remaining. What should the administration do going forward, in your opinion?
Well, they should announce a meaningful strategy that puts pressure on Iran. And of course, it's those that are buying oil like the Chinese. If we don't put pressure on Tehran, this will continue because they want to be the hegemon in the region. And at this point, they have the upper hand.
Wow. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Maginnis, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on Washington Watch and give us an update of what's happening. Big developments. We're going to be keeping a pulse on it and look forward to having you back. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jody. Have a great day.